Could you imagine? Somebody bends over and whispers into your ear the greatest secret of all history. How intently would you listen? How would you hang on those words? How would you ask him to repeat that again and again just to make sure that you got every single detail? One of the greatest rabbis of his generation, the great Rabbi Akiva, Rabban Shel Yisrael, someone who was so great that none other than Moshe Rabbeinu asked God, why did you give the Torah through me? You should have given it through him. The great Rabbi Akiva announces to his generation, I'm going to let you in on one of the greatest secrets of history. I'm going to tell you who is Mashiach. And it's at that moment that you kind of can picture that everybody of the generation kind of leaned in a little closer and said, yeah, Rabbi, tell us. We've been waiting so long. Who is it? Who is that masked man anyways? And Rabbi Akiva announces, Klal Yisrael. You see this man Bar Kochba? He is Mashiach. And the people couldn't believe it. And they watched the greatest rabbi of the generation, Rabbi Akiva, carry the towel of Bar Kochba to the mikveh, to the wash house, day after day. But what do you mean? He's the greatest rabbi. Yes, but he's Melech HaMashiach. And to a king, you service. Wow, Rabbi Akiva really believes it. This guy Bar Kochba is Mashiach. Well, guys, the Gemara tells us that over time things went wrong. And Bar Kochba did not start the redemption. He ends up dying, and Mashiach does not come. And the question is obvious. Rabbi Akiva was wrong? This is Rabbi Akiva. Rabban Shel Yisrael. You might not know this. All the Torah that we have today is from Rabbi Akiva when he started over with 5 students. Could you imagine? The greatest rabbi from the greatest that ever lived. And he told you somebody was Mashiach, and the redemption did not come. What went wrong? Was he wrong? Ladies and gentlemen, open your hearts. Rabbi Akiva was not wrong. This man that he pointed out, Bar Kochba, was the bona fide Mashiach of his generation. But Rabbi Akiva had 24,000 students. Shelo nahagu kavod ze laze. And because he had these wonderful, great men, don't get me wrong, they were Tanaim. But for some reason, somehow, on their incredible level, they were lacking showing respect to others in some way. In a generation that's lo nahagu kavod ze laze, generation that people aren't respecting other Jews, the redemption cannot come. You see, the second Bet HaMikdash was destroyed because people did not have respect for others. Sinat Chinam was rampant. If you want to be able to fix the reason why we got into the Galut, you got to go back to the root reason of what destroyed it in the first place. Now, if the second Bet HaMikdash was destroyed because people didn't have respect for each other, how in the world can you build a third Bet HaMikdash in a generation that people are still lo nahagu kavod ze laze? And that is why when these 24,000 students started dying out over the 30 some odd days, it became a time of avelut for generations to come. You know what the avelut was about? It wasn't about the death of the students. It was about the fact that we had an opportunity to bring a redemption and build a third Bet HaMikdash, and we destroyed that too. Echa. There is no difference between the avelut of the 9 days and the avelut of Sfirat HaOmer of the first 33 days. They're both about the destruction of God's house. The 3 weeks, 9 days, the first 2 bayit were destroyed. And in the days of Sfirat HaOmer, the third Bet HaMikdash potential that was going to be built with a redemption on hand. But because we couldn't show kavod one to another, that potential was destroyed as well. And hence, Avelut comes back. Echa. You know what this means to me? You could be looking Mashiach in the face. You can know his name. You can know where he lives. You can walk up on the street and catch a conversation with him. You can even ask him, what took so long? And still, looking him in the face, no respect, no redemption. And that's what happened in the days of Rabbi Akiva. And to me, this is a little bit alarming, maybe even frightening. Because we're living now in a time that the greatest rabbis of our generation are kind of, again, telling us that Mashiach is already amongst us. The great Reb Chaim Kanievsky Shalita has already said kama v'kama times that Mashiach is already in Israel. The great Rabbi Rabbi David Abu Hatzera Shalita, I went to see him right before COVID, a few years back. I see that the rabbi is standing up on his feet for hours, taking in people to get blessings. And I turned to the shamosh and I said, the rabbi stands all day? Give him a chair. Let him sit down. It's not nice. The people are coming in. Let the rabbi sit. He says, the rabbi used to sit until a few years ago. One night, Rabbi David Abu Hatzera had a dream. His grandfather, the Baba Sali, came to him. And he said to his grandson, Mashiach came to visit you today and to take your blessing, and you sat in front of a king? From that minute on, the rabbi stood in case he ever comes back. He's amongst us. To talk about being so close to a ge'ulah, the words are just not doing justice. We feel like the boy who cried wolf, but he is there. The greatest rabbis are telling us he's here, and we're so close. And yet, we could be staring him in the face. We might even be able to put out a search party in Israel and run up and down the streets of the cities and knock on doors and try and find him. And still, if there's no respect, there's no redemption. Like in the days of Rabbi Akiva, not only did they know him, but they know his name. They knew exactly who he was. But the redemption was held back because we couldn't find kavod one to another. That's amazing to me. He's amongst us. And we were hit with COVID-19, losing so many good people. He's amongst us, and we had to suffer through Meron, 45 holy Kiddushim lost. He's amongst us, and we had to watch the videos of the rafters and the stolen Bet Midrash as they came crashing down, losing good Jews. Mashiach is here. And from 10,000 buildings in Miami, a Jewish building comes crashing down. What's going on? What's going on? Rabbi, if he's here, come on. Somebody donate a shofar and hand it to him. Let's get this done. Let's get this over. We're hedged. We're done. We all want home. What's taking? And the answer is, says Rabbi Akiva, I could tell you his name. I can tell you where he lives. But if there's no respect, there's no redemption. Why is it so difficult for us to grapple with this one point? Why can't we finally get our heads around this one? You know, Torah, we have tens of thousands of people learning all over the world. We probably have a renaissance of more Torah than who knows how many generations. Gemilut Chasadim, we have a gemach for toothpicks. We have a gemach for everything. We have phone books that are this thick of Gemilut Chasadim organizations on anything you'll ever need. So we have Torah, we have Gemilut Chasadim. Tzedakah, oh, you're in the right community. We raised the bar of what it means to give in Klal Yisrael. So what's holding us back? We have it all. There's one thing we still didn't break. And this is something that dates back all the way to Joseph and his brothers. When one brother sells another brother down the river, all the way to Egypt. And the sinat chinam of then, and the sinat chinam of middle, and the sinat chinam of end is still haunting us till today. Says Rabbi Akiva, yes. Reb Chaim Kanievsky is right. Yes. Reb David Abuhatzera is right. Yes, he's close. He's amongst us. We can hear the footsteps of Mashiach. And I still tell you, no respect, no redemption. Come on, Rabbi. How do we do this? Why is it so difficult to get around this one? And in all honesty, I think it has a lot to do with human nature. You see, when we come into the world as a baby, we're the cutest, cuddliest portion of our life. But we're also in the most selfish mindset that a human ever goes through. The baby cries, it wants to eat, 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 in the afternoon, doesn't matter who, where, what, convenient, not, it's about me. I need to eat now. Me, me, me. The baby needs to be changed. It doesn't matter, you're on the train, you're in a doctor's office, the most inconvenient places, the baby needs to be changed now. The baby is all about me. And some people, as you watch, they go to 2, 3, 4 years old. Some kids, their first word, when they play with other children with toys, you know what that first word is? Mine. Mine. How many times you tell your kid, no, honey, you got to share that toy with your friends. No, mommy, mine. It's mine. It's about me. Life starts very self-centered. But we were supposed to mature. We were supposed to grow. And as life goes on, we were supposed to learn that life is not about me. But life was really meant to live for others. We were supposed to pick up that message with maturity. And you know what's funny? We're talking about babies and infancy. We're talking about kids. There are people 20, 30, 40, even 50 years old, and they're still in the mode of infancy. They still are living with the mindset that life is all about me. And that focus on me brings to such a selfishness. That focus on me brings to jealousy, because if you have it and I don't, what about me? And that focus can bring, God forbid, to hatred, because, wait one second, you don't know who me is? Excuse my grammar? You don't appreciate the me? You mean you come before me? I can't stand you. Baseless hatred. The focus on me brings selfishness. The focus on me brings hatred. The focus on it's all about me brings such jealousy when it's not about me. If we could just drop the focus on me and start living with the focus on we. Suddenly, there goes the jealousy. Because I'm investing and doing and living for you, I only see your good. Because when I'm putting so much into you, the more you give, the more you love. And we start loving people, and we start building people, and we start living for people. And we start feeling purpose and fulfillment in life, because suddenly life is delicious. It's happiness, it's enjoyment. Because we realize it's not about me. Hashem is waiting for us to get this message. Hashem is not going to redeem individuals. He's waiting to redeem a nation. And the only time we are a nation is when we find the glue that brings our souls together, living together for each other. Do you know that we come from great people? Any book that you've ever read in your life, Art Scroll and the such, of great people in the Jewish nation, whether it have been rabbis, whether it have been askanim, people that did for the community. But the common denominator of all the great people we know about was that life was never about them. Life was always about everyone else. And that is the common denominator of being an incredible person. And I'm going to let you in on a secret. Even when you are living for other people and you're doing for other people, and you find many times that the person you're living for and you're helping and building, and they don't appreciate what you're doing, and it still makes no difference. It doesn't change the fact that you became an incredible person. And this is where the Geula is found. It's not the name of Mashiach, and it's not the address. It's the master key to the redemption. Ladies and gentlemen, did you hear about a rabbi? Recently we lost him. His name was Chacham Alber Hamra. He was the chief rabbi of Damascus. He frequented the Syrian community back in Brooklyn. He came around all the time. I want to tell you very quickly, back in Damascus, in the day when he was a young rabbi then, 2 o'clock in the morning, 1974. This was the middle of the Yom Kippur War. At 2 o'clock in the morning, there was a bang on the rabbi's door. It was a man by the name of Mr. Totah. He was one of the community activists. He's banging on the rabbi's door. Rabbi, come out quick. The rabbi jumps out of bed, puts on clothing, and he says, what's going on? What's so serious in the middle of the night? And then behind him he sees there's standing a Syrian general from the Syrian army. And Mr. Totach says, Rabbi, you have to come with us immediately. They take the rabbi out to the cemetery. And I'm about to show you a picture that hung on the wall of Rabbi Alber Hamra's home in Israel for over 30 years. Listen to this, watch this picture. This is incredible. I don't know if you can see this picture from where you're sitting. In this picture you can see there are 3 men standing by a huge ditch, and in front of them, on the picture it only captures 3 coffins, but really there was a lineup of 18. The Syrian general turns to Rabbi Alber Hamra and he says to him, Rabbi, I know in the Jewish religion before you bury your dead, there are prayers to say. I'm giving you the opportunity now to pray for these 18 Israeli soldiers that we just killed at war. Pray quickly, because we're about to push their coffins into the ditch. There in the picture you saw 3 men. The first was Rabbi Zaki Aseh. The second was a great man by the name of Jidak Babie. And the third one was the young Rabbi Alber Hamra. While the other 2 men were praying, you know what Rabbi Hamra did? He ran to the other side of the ditch. And forgive me for telling you this, but he opened all 18 coffins and looked at every one of those 18 Israeli soldiers in the face and memorized their faces. So that one day, he said, if I can make it back to Israel, I could stand and testify on their wives that their husbands were laid to rest. Their wives will not be agonot. Their wives will be able to remarry. The mothers of these boys, these soldiers, will be able to put their head on the pillow at night, knowing with closure what happened to their sons and where they're at. I don't want these boys to be MIA. So look at the quick thinking of a rabbi who took a responsibility to live for his community, to live for others, while everybody else was saying prayers. With the quick thinking, he looks at the faces of these 18 soldiers. He memorizes them. And later on, years later, he stands in front of families and he tells the wives of these soldiers, you can remarry. I stand testimony. I saw that they were buried and put to rest. That is somebody that every waking moment of his life, he was thinking, living the responsibility of another Jew. What can I do for you? how can I live for you? And I found out over the years something incredible. If a person is battling anger issues, if a person is battling jealousy issues, go out and start loving people. Go out and start living for people. And the more you start doing good for people, it's mashpia, it has influence back on your own insides in such an incredible way that there's no room for jealousy. There's no room for hatred. And we start connecting in a way that we'd be out of here long ago. To me, this is incredible. Just recently, not too long ago, we lost a great rabbi in our community, Rabbi Shlomo Lankry, Zechet Tzadik Lebracha. Some of you might have known Rabbi Lankry. He was a legend in his own time. Anyone who came to Brooklyn, especially to the Sephardic community, nobody went through without knowing Rabbi Lankry. He was bigger than life. He was a personality of personalities. He used to get people to laugh, but at the same time, he always knew, with the funny broken English that he had, the right words to pick up the spirits of people. And you wouldn't expect that from a guy who was none other than a one-man Chevra Kadisha of the whole community. That's right. He was the Chevra Kadisha of the community, a one-man show. Sometimes he would have 2 or 3 funerals that he'd have to bury people a day. And he's not the guy that showed up to the funeral and kish. No, he was the guy that went with the family afterwards to the cemetery and oversaw the Kvurat Yisrael and made sure that they were good to the last moment, and even brought them home and showed up by the house for the Shiva and raised up the family. He would get constantly, not 10, not 20, not 30 years. We're talking about almost 40 years of phone calls in the middle of the night, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. And he had that legendary pickup of, "Hi, boss. Rabbi, I'm sorry to wake you up, but we have a mitzvah. Someone just passed." He would jump out of bed, put on his clothing, and run to go do for another family. Run to go do the mitzvot for people at their dire moment of need. That was Rabbi Lankry. A man that knew nothing about living for himself. I think he owned 1 suit. It was only about other people. It was only about the community. It was only about changing the lives and being there for others. Recently in COVID, a great young rabbi by the name of Rabbi Chaim Dahan, he taught my shul. He gave the ladies class. He wouldn't take a penny. Talking about people that were out there to make good and influence the good lives of other Jews. Noseh be'ol im chavero. He would carry the burdens of people. He would give them incredible advice. He wouldn't take a nickel. L'shem shamayim. COVID-19 came. And we got the phone call one morning. It was a shock. This young rabbi, Rabbi Chaim Dahan, barely 50 years old, he passes away. His wife calls me that morning and she's crying. She says, "Rabbi, please." This was smack in the middle of the height of COVID. We're talking about between Purim and Pesach, when nobody was walking outdoors, where all we heard day and night were the sirens. She calls me and says, "Rabbi, please, I don't think we're going to have a minyan by the burial by the cemetery, let alone a rabbi. Please, can you come? Just say a few words by the grave." Of course there's no funeral. We were in the middle of COVID. There was nothing. Barely a Kaddish. I said, I have to go have Hakarat Tov to this rabbi that taught by me in the shul. I jump in the car and drive out. Ladies and gentlemen, I drive into the cemetery in Long Island. There was a parade of cars, and none of those cars were siblings. It was just the Metim themselves. And they brought them out. And each person didn't have their individual minyan. So we had to bring all the avelim together to make a minyan at each kvura. When it came time for Rabbi Chaim Dahan, I turned to the guys from the cemetery. These guys, the grave diggers, they were in hazmat suits from head to toe. They looked like Buzz Lightyear in yellow. They literally looked like an astronaut with glass across their faces, thick gloves, holding shovels, ready to go. After I said a few words on the grave of this rabbi, I turned to one of the grave diggers and I said, "Can I have your shovel?" I want to do the mitzvah. I want to put dirt on top of the coffin. He looks at me and says, no. I said, what do you mean no? Give me the shovel. He says, no. I said, why not? He says, if I give you the shovel, I'm scared I might get COVID. I said, bro, look at you, for heaven's sake. You're in this hazmat suit from head to toe. You look like you're from outer space. I'm standing here in my yeshiva jacket with this little mask with a smiley, have a nice day, and you're scared of getting COVID? Give me the shovel. He says, no, Rabbi, I'm not giving you the shovel. I said, all right. Borei Olam, you want me to do this by hand? It's not going to be the first thing I've done in life by hand. I got down on all fours, me and another guy, and with our hands, we started to push the dirt off the sides and cover the coffin of this beautiful rabbi, this Reb Chaim Dahan. And as we finished and covered the entire coffin, we had them say Kaddish. It was too much. I'm not a strong-hearted guy. I'm a sweetie. This was a lot for me. I got back in my car, I started driving back to Brooklyn, and then I get the phone call. It's my father from Lakewood. Dovidal, Rabbi Lankry just called me, and he raised the roof. He was screaming. I never heard him scream that loud. I said, why? What's the matter? He said he just saw the Zoom. He saw you were in a cemetery by Rabbi Dahan. He saw that you gave the speech by the grave. Rabbi Lankry says, is he crazy? He's going outside in the middle of COVID? Call Duvi right now. Tell him he's not allowed to go outside. No more cemeteries. No more funerals. I said, but, that's it. I said, okay. I went home. Didn't come out. No more cemeteries. No more funerals. The next week, I got a dozen phone calls. Rabbi Lankry said, no more cemeteries. No more funerals. The next week, I'm watching on Zoom a different funeral from someone in the community. And on the camera, who comes walking right by? Rabbi Lankry. I said, wait 1 second. Holy cow. Look at this. He gives it to me over the head. He yells at me something awesome. My poor father had to take the beating for his son, which is not the first time a father takes beatings for his son. And he himself is walking around the cemetery at a different funeral. What's going on? What happened to COVID-19? And he's much older. He's more susceptible. I said, that's it. The next day, I drive out to Rabbi Lankry's house upstairs from the shul. I come walking upstairs, and this time I don't even knock on the door. I push the door open. Where's the rabbi? The Rebbitzin said he's in the back on the porch. I walk outside. Rabbi Lankry, he sees me. You stupid. I said, you went to a cemetery, COVID-19. What are you thinking? It's dangerous. I said, Rabbi, that's why I'm here. I saw you on Zoom yesterday. You were by the cemetery yourself, by a funeral. He says, yeah, so? I said, what do you mean so? You can be there, COVID-19 with all the danger, and not me? And you know what he answers me? He says, you stupid. The Malach HaMavet is scared of me. But you're a dead man. That's what he tells me. And I'm thinking to myself, what does that mean? Rabbi Lankry sometimes was the type of guy that you can't really ask, what does that mean? But he said the Malach HaMavet was scared of him. But you got to be careful. I didn't understand what that meant until 2 weeks ago, Shabbat. Rabbi Lankry, for the first time in months, gets dressed on Shabbat, comes downstairs. He gives the dirasha in shul. He prays with them shachrit. He gives the dirasha after kiddush. He comes back downstairs and gives the class before mincha, prays mincha, gives the class by Sudat Shalishit. They're looking at him like, wow, what happened to the rabbi? It's the old Rabbi Lankry. He's in full bloom. We haven't seen him in months. He comes down. He's giving classes. He looks great. He's eating. After Shabbat, he goes upstairs, makes Havdalah. He has Seudat Revi'it Melava Malka. He says goodnight to his wife, goodnight to his kids, goes to bed, and lays down to go to sleep for good. And Hashem took him so peacefully. We call that nishika. And then the words rang in my head. The Malach HaMavet cannot touch me, because I spent my life living for others in the area of chesed, of burial, and in that area I'm untouchable. And here's the chidush. This is something I heard from the great Reb Chaim Kanievsky. In an area that you help and live for other people, you have a special protection in that area. If you know somebody, God forbid, is sick, and you help them out with their sickness, you're protected from Shamayim, from that sickness, because you lived for someone else. You help someone else in that area, and you become then untouchable in that area. Could you imagine if we would start living for people? Not only the life would be happy and fulfilled, not only would the jealousy and the hatred finally be erased, but we'd become no longer individuals. We'd become a people. And it's that moment that the name of Mashiach and the identity is not as important as a nation that's ready for redemption. Thank you for listening.